right. Oh, wow.
All right.
Dual cameras.
Yeah, dual cameras. I'm here, guys, with Greg.
Yeah.
Amazing. I've been talking to him. We're here with the Artist Report at this amazing booth that Daniel K. Winn and Winn has. It's just it's big. It's very big. And he introduced me to Greg, who is a creator, a manager. You do a lot. You have a family. Your daughter also does art too.
No, our daughter is in the business.
In the business. Gotcha.
She's an art historian.
That's amazing. That's so cool. So we were talking for a while before we started recording, and I was like, oh my God, stop. I want to get this on camera because it's so cool. You were telling me about Salvatore Dali's estate.
Well, it's not his estate. It's really the estate of one of his publishers, one of his significant publishers.
Okay.
And this publisher was a friend of the Surrealists.
Uh-huh.
And ended up publishing 200 of Dali's editions between the years 1958 and 1973.
Wow.
And he also, Argelais opened up the Museum of Surrealism outside Paris, which was in a 78-room chateau.
Wow.
Now, in fairness, even though it was a museum, it was not really a public museum. No one wanted to, none of the family ever wanted to maintain it, so it was a private museum.
So how do you get into it?
You couldn't.
You couldn't.
Yeah, but
Did you get to go see it?
I saw it after he died.
Okay.
And the reason is that I was approached through a mutual friend by, when the estate, Argelais had 2 children, a son and daughter, and the estate was divided in half, and I was approached through a friend by the daughter, and I worked with her on her part of the estate for about 9 years.
Wow.
And really what they were looking to do is to de-assess and make the collection manageable for themselves. Because Argelais was a very fine collaborator with Dali. He was really involved in a lot of the decisions that Dali made on those editions. But he also was not a great businessman. So there was a lot of art still left in when he died. So I helped the daughter for about 9 years. And then this past year, I made an arrangement with the son's part of the estate. But to answer your question about the chateau, I visited it about a year after he died. And it was when the family was trying to figure out how to market and sell a 78-room chateau.
Wow.
It's hard to sell it. It's not something you put it in on Zillow or Redfin or something like that. So I'd got them to say, and it was really quite extraordinary. It was it was built over Roman ruins at 2,000 years old.
Oh my God.
So when you went down into the basements, there were actually Roman baths down below. There were wine cellars. This was all that sandstone. But what I found interesting about it is how small, when you're a 70-room castle, like the kitchen was like a galley kitchen. It was really interesting because we always think about these huge spaces. But the chateau had 35 bedrooms. What was interesting is at that moment, there was art stacked in every single bedroom.
Really?
And so just over the years, that's the way he collected. But he put on parties. It was a party chateau.
Oh, wow.
So he had parties with them, where he would have the Surrealists there, the founder Andre Breton, and all the famous Surrealists would come to his parties there. He would have things like Lady Godiva on a white horse going through the chateau. I mean, they had on the property also 14th century chateau chapel. They had an orangerie. An orangerie is where you take your trees and you put them on wheels and you put them inside for the winter.
Oh, I didn't even know.
So I mean, it was a fascinating experience. But anyway, it's a great honor for me to be able to work with this collection, and the family were very acquisitive as well. So a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Did they sell the
chateau was sold? Yeah.
Oh.
No, the truth is, the chateau is probably going to be many millions of dollars worth of updating and restorations, and then someone's still going to need to maintain it.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's an easy sell.
Yeah. So. That's amazing. Now, how did you get into being an art curator? Is it something you always did, or did you just always love art?
It's a complicated story. I went to college and was going to go to medical school. And this is in the late 60s, and I was accepted in medical school, and I was not ready. So I told my parents I was going to leave the country, like, you know, a pilgrimage. You know, most kids go to Europe. And I said I was going to go for 8 months, and I didn't go to Europe. I went to Southeast Asia, and then to Africa, and I was gone 4.5 years.
Oh wow!
So when I got back, my mother, and who was very influential, said, "Let's talk about what you do when you travel," because I was kind of wallowing.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, what happens when you come to a new city?" And I said, "Well, I tend to gravitate toward galleries and museums," which I hadn't really thought about it. So the more she talked, my mother was a very powerful woman. She went out and she bought me business cards that day. It said, "Dealer in Fine Art."
Oh, that's so
I
smart.
knew nothing. But once you declare you are something, you've got to become that.
Yeah.
And then it's been a roller coaster. You know, I've done a little bit of everything, but I've worked in art galleries. I've owned 6 of my own art galleries.
Amazing.
I've been a publisher, and now really my defining moments are as a collector and as an artist agent and a publisher. So it's the thing that gives me the most gratification.
And what did your mother do?
My mother was you know, she came out of the Depression. She was a child of the Depression. So she was a nurse, but then in her later life she actually did become an artist. But it was after I was well out of the house. So, I mean, I think that by osmosis, because there were art books all over the house, I must have developed some kind of sensibility, but I don't remember it. It's not a conscious memory. Like, I would say, "Oh wow, these books," but I'm sure that, but I recognize the names.
Yeah.
And my mom collected a lot of books, and I've become a huge art book collector. In fact, my wife's not around. I just bought 6 more books today. So, because I like to buy art, I'm enamored of art books.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
And I'm also compulsive because I have my entire art library alphabetized.
Wow.
So you say, "Where's your Mark Rothko book?" Well, it's under the R's.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's very that's good, easy to find.
Compulsive? Yeah.
Now, it's so cool to be here. What makes you find an artist that you want to represent? Like for artists out there.
Well, at this particular moment in time, I'm not seeking new artists because I just don't have the time. I'm only dealing with a couple of late career artists who I've worked with, one for 20 years, one for 26 years.
Wow.
I've got a couple of Korean artists I'm working with that I've worked with for about 6 years. But again, it's a lot of work being an agent. And I have enough in my life.
Yeah.
So, but I have this saying that when I'm looking for artists, I say that, and this is the same as a collector.
Yeah.
I first of all have to look at, do I truly love the work? Just like I say, if I love something. So do I truly so I have these 3 things.
Yeah.
One is it worthy?
Yeah.
Now, being worthy means, does it attract me? Is it innovative? Is it something that gives me joy?
Yeah.
Because it's all about heartstrings. I've got to feel it in my heart first. So my first thing is by looking at artists first. Then I have to say, are they prolific enough to make sense? Because if a person only does 1 painting every 10 years, I can't market it.
Yeah.
So I've got to figure out, and if I'm going to present their works to galleries, you've got to be able to present a body of work. And the third thing is, and this is probably the most important thing, when I work with an artist, I have to like them. I've seen artists' works that I really like their work, but then I met them and I hated them. So I really have to like, so I have those 3 things. I call it a low AQ, and I won't tell you what the A is. The Q is quotient.
Okay.
So, but maybe it's likability quotient.
Gotcha.
So I really have to be involved. So the artists I'm working with now, the 3 artists I'm working with at this point in my career, but I'm also, I don't like thinking of myself as late career because my dad's 97 and still active.
Is he an artist too?
No, my dad was a psychiatrist.
Oh.
But in my career, what I like to do is work with people. In fact, I only want to work with people I like. Life's too short to work with jerks. So
that's true.
So, but going back to, because when we were first introducing each other, I told you my main thing is I'm a collector. I'm very acquisitive. And I live by, if I love it and I can afford it, I buy it. If I love it, I really do live by it. And so I was telling her this morning that someone called me up, and my daughter called me up and said that a gallery wanted to offer out one of our major paintings in our house. And my wife said, I saw her look on her face, and I said, what's going on? She says, I don't think we're done with that. So things are going in and out of our house as dealers, but we're also collectors.
Yeah.
You know? So, And that's what's fun. You know, there's a joy in acquiring things. You know, when you go buy something new pair of shoes, new book, you get that retail, that rush, that endorphin rush of acquisitiveness. And I think that's what being a collector is all about.
How do you decide what makes the wall? Like, how do you say, like, okay, this piece is going to go in our living room? What is
We're
that?
very eclectic. We fall in love with each piece individually. So we have a mix of things. Like I'm thinking about in my family room right now. I have a painting by a friend of mine. I have a painting from 1859 with this huge gold period frame, hand-carved plaster frame. I have some pen and ink drawings from the 19th century. What else do I have in that room? I have some African sculpture. I just bought a contemporary sculpture a few weeks ago by an artist that I met that I fell in love with her work. It has a lot of kind of jewels in it. It's what my collection's about is every piece speaks to me. So it's not about any theme. I'm not looking. It's not all African. It's not all American Indian. It's not all anything. So I'm one of the collections. I'll tell you the collection I started a few years ago, which is now I get more comments on this collection than anything else. So I was at a photo gallery in New Orleans, and there's a handful of photo galleries around the country that are really great with vintage photos. And I'm talking about silver gelatin, black and white photos. So I found a photo of Chagall working on ceramic from the late 50s.
That's amazing.
And it was done by the photographer Philippe Halsman. And Philippe Halsman is a very famous vintage photographer, who worked a lot with Dali. He did all the books of jumping, and he did the jump book and so on. So I bought it because I fell in love with it. And again, I loved it. It fit into my budget. So I didn't know it was going to become a disease. But in the last several years, I bought a Jackson Pollock of him doing a drip painting from 1949 by Martha Holmes. I bought a Villiers of Picasso. These are all signed photos. Picasso painting on a piece of glass.
Oh my God.
My wife bought me, my prized possessions, my wife bought me an Arnold Newman, great portrait artist, of Miro in his 80s, with a painting of his behind him. And at 80 years old, he looked like he was 16. I mean, he had that energy of a child. And then I have a Thomas Hart Benton with his self-portrait in the background that was done by Alfred Eisenstadt, who was the one who did the VJ Day, Things Used by Life magazine photographer. I have one of Rockwell doing a portrait also by Eisenstadt. So I have this collection in my dining room of black and white photos. They're all framed the same. I get more comments about that because it's a collection I created.
Yeah.
It's artists being photographed by famous photographer artists.
That's amazing.
Isn't that a neat collection?
I love that. That's so cool.
And so I look for those kinds of things. And again, I buy them because I love them. And one of the things that is hard is, because as a dealer, things are moving in and out, is there's things that I bought my wife Joseph Albert several years ago for her birthday. And it was, my daughter did not know it was for her birthday. She sold it before they ever got home.
Oh my God.
So I was asked, she still wants one. So I still owe her an Albert at some point or another.
So what happened? Did you give her a birthday present that year? Or?
Oh no, she's well taken care of.
Okay. Oh, that's so...
She gets beautiful things. But then recently, I never thought I would start doing these. I've started buying her Picasso ceramics. And I love Picasso ceramics, so the last few years I bought. Originally, I thought I was buying them for inventory, but now they're hers.
They're in your house.
They're hers.
So does she look at what you buy and say, "Okay, I want this"? Or?
Actually, what's interesting is she's now adopted the same attitude. If I love it, I can afford it, I buy it. And we were at a place in Santa Barbara a couple of days ago, in one of these consignment kind of places, antique places with vendors, and she found this beautiful 1950s French side table, and we needed something like that, and her eye picked it up because I missed it. And after we'd gone through in different paces throughout the store, she came back. She said, "I love this," and she says, "I really want it." So it's going to be delivered on Monday.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Now, is there any advice you can give to young artists out there who may be watching this on how to make it or become an artist that you'd like to collect?
That's a very important concept. Don't let anybody convince you of what you like. Trust your own taste and trust your own eye. Give yourself permission to trust yourself. if you look at something and you go, and then you get that little intake of breath and say, I love that, follow that. That's what it's all about. It's what gives you joy. And what's interesting is that your taste is going to be different than mine, and that's just fine. But I find so often collectors will want to have someone else validate what their taste is, and sometimes they'll be talked out of things. What you don't want to end up being is a should have, would have, could have. You don't want to regret things later in life. And believe me, there's things I did not. There's things in my life I couldn't afford at the time. There's things in my life that I'd love to own that I can't afford now. But the point is following your own eye, falling in love, giving yourself. And again, and I said to you earlier, I have lots of permission scripts, and I'll run through them. I'll say, do I really have a place for this? That doesn't matter, by the way, because I will find a place for something I love. Is it something I'll own, really get joy out of for years? Yes. Sometimes I buy things with a name because I like, because part of collectability is not just loving it. Part of it is being able to, have your friends say, well, you have and I love I'm a storyteller anyway, so I love the fact that I love art or things that have stories about them. So it's not just, so every single item that we own has a story of some kind. I have 35 Persian rugs in my house. Every one I bought one at a time. It was not going about, I need 8 for this and this size. Every one was bought as a single work of art. So, I think that's important for you to give, again, permission, whether it's automobiles, I'm always intrigued when I meet a collector who collects something I would have never, ever thought of. I have a cousin who collects, now granted, my cousin has a lot, who collects cans of coconut water from all over the world. And
are they full or are they empty?
Yeah, they're full. And he has them, from various varieties from Fiji, from the Philippines, from Vietnam, and he's made a bar out of it. Well, I kind of like how strange that is, because he's really focused on it. So, and I love when I own one of something, and a collector will come to me and say, yeah, I have 200 of those. I'm like, wow, that's impressive. That gives me great joy as well. So being a collector is all about the smile that goes on your face. So.
Can you tell me about the Salvatore Dali pieces?
The Salvador Dali pieces that are here are part of the Argelais collection, as we talked about earlier. What's marked about Dali was one of the most interesting artists of the 20th century. He's one of the most interesting cultural forces of the 20th century. What is marked about this particular collection is that he worked mostly in what's called dry point etching, which means he was working on a piece of soft copper with a diamond stylus. He left no room for error, so he would draw on the plate. And that's what the whole collection, the collaboration of Argelais was all about. Argelais and his children and his wife spent every summer for 16 years living next door to Dali and Portugal. So they grew up, the kids grew up being around him. And it's interesting because he was such a theatrical character, but he had another personality. He was very, very well read, very informed, and just a fascinating human being. And what's interesting now is that people are rediscovering Dali. He had some unfortunate scandals toward the end of his life that he had nothing to do with, which kind of colored and muddied the waters, which now history is sorting out, and he's kind of being rediscovered. But you cannot deny, when he was, from the 30s until the 70s, everywhere he was, people wanted to be around him. He lived in California in the 40s during World War II. Walt Disney did projects with him. Alfred Hitchcock did projects with him. He was living up in Carmel. Movie stars would take a train up to see him, to have an audience with him. He never went. He went to have an audience with Dali. Dali did not come to you. Prime ministers, presidents, kings, queens, everybody wanted to be around him. And there was a reason for it. He was a force of nature. And he was the only person in history to ever have 2 museums only devoted to him during his lifetime. That's pretty significant. But Dali was so topical, and I think over time you're going to just see more and more museum shows. I've been following them. So, and I just watched a film the other day about a conference of chemists, physicists, and mathematicians, all Nobel Prize winners, who got together at Dali's museum in Figueres to talk about him because of how well he knew mathematics and chemistry.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it is.
It's really cool. That's really cool. And where are you from originally?
I've lived all over the world, but my dad was an army physician for a while, so we were army brats. And but I did high school and college in Southern California. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And
but I live in Chicago.
You live in Chicago. Oh, that's amazing. So you came here for this event today, or?
I work with Daniel and Randy. I do various shows with them. I do shows around the country. I had a show in Austin last week, a show in New York the week before. So no, I'm a road warrior.
Now, are these dollies for sale?
Yes.
Or, that's
everything
amazing.
in the book. This is a commercial art fair. It's called the Los Angeles Contemporary and Modern Art Fair. And yeah,
so
everything is for sale.
Everything is for sale. Wow. Well, that's amazing. Now, how could people go and find and buy stuff from you, or do you have to be like?
You have to go through the galleries.
To go through the galleries. So if they go and they want to look at the dollies, they can go to Daniel Winn's website or
Winnslaven.com. Winnslaven.com. I think that's it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's cool. And if they want to see any more of the stuff that you collect or follow you, what's your website that
I'm a behind the scenes source, so I don't compete with the people I sell to or that I provide for. So the answer is no, I'm not available.
Gotcha.
So,
all right. Well, it's great to talk to you. You know so much about art. It's amazing. And thanks for all of your advice, Greg. It was so cool.
Pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you,
Thank
too.
You.
Yeah. All right. And I'm going to end this one, but we're going to just show Facebook the dollies real quick.
Around the corner.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hold on. Here we go.